Hi, welcome back everyone. After a short break from PvE, I'm ready to make more cool and off-meta builds for everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about the skill that has less than 10 people playing it according to PvE Ninja. This build is cheap and you should be able to make an issue version without some unnecessary things like level 4 empower, 2120 gems and so on for around 20 divines. But as usual, prices may change. Explosive Concoction once gained some popularity as really strong skill for league start or for leveling new characters, but that was not how GG wanted us to play this skill gem, so they nerfed base flat damage of the skill and moved it to condition damage from the flasks. This league GGG changed Breachward Bloodline and introduced new Cryogenesis passives, which will change all added damage to either cold or lightning depending on your maximum attribute. As soon as I saw that, I knew that I would be making this build. But before we begin, I'm trying to stream more, so if you want to see me play live, theory craft new builds or just have a chat, feel free to follow me on Twitch. Okay, the main skill of this build is Explosive Concoction of Destruction. The difference between Transfigured version and default one is that it has less flat damage, but instead of pretty useless damage over time, we get crazy amount of crit multi from Ruby Flask. Combine it with higher base critical strike chance and you're kinda forced to play crit version of this build. But before that, we need to somehow solve the flask problem. Each skill use will consume 1 flask charge per projectile. In my version I have 6 projectiles, so each attack would consume 6 charges, which is quite a lot. To overcome this issue, we can use reduced flask charges used on the tree and from the gem quality itself. This way I was able to reduce charge consumption down to 4 per attack. Better, but still not enough. This is why I will be going pretty hard on charge recovery on the flask themselves. Tier 1 flask recovery, charge recovery implicit, several points on the tree, combination of the best ascendancy in the game Pathfinder and Tides of Time, and last but not least, Watcher with flask charge gain on critical strike while affected by precision. This will result in basically 100% uptime on our flask. Now let's talk about the Breachward Bloodline. Cryogenesis will make all of our flat damage as base cold instead of anything else. You could have gone for lightning damage instead, and this would result in much higher damage because of the shock, but I decided to settle for cold for one simple reason: chill and freeze. As you saw in the background videos, all of the rares and bosses are either permanently frozen or just chilled by a lot. I might add temporal chains into the build just for the memes later. But freeze and chill is extremely underrated defensive mechanic, and with this build you can easily boss rush. The icing on the cake is that we can use another Breachward Ascendancy, Tool of the Blizzard. Not only it will increase the duration of the freeze, but if we use 2 Chronic Rings, we will ignore enemy cold resistance. To scale the damage even further, we are going to be using crit and as much gem levels as possible. That was key interaction for offense of the build. But for the defenses, I'm using pretty default combo of Petrified Blood, Doppelganger, Flesh and Stone, Suppression Cap, some endurance charges and huge recovery from Life Flask. Combine it with Immortal Call, some Fortify and Freeze Proliferation and you get some solid defenses. Okay, now let's move forward to the tree. For my first 2 points, I'm obviously using Nature's Adrenaline and Master Surgeon, and Cryogenesis with Tool of the Blizzard for the last 2. For the passives, I'm getting some life, increased projectile speed with more projectile speed mastery. It makes quite a big difference to how it feels to play with this skill, so definitely recommend it. Then some suppression, crit chance and multi, more life, necessary accuracy, maximum frenzy, more crit multi, and mana cost with some reservation. You don't really need mana cost here, and you can get mana reservation here instead, but with this I'm basically able to run no region, no leech maps. So if you want to care about less mods, I will still take it. Then more suppression, additional projectiles with monster cannot block your attacks, flask passives, more life with suppress mastery, reservation, more projectile speed and some flask charge gain. And of course, as much life recovery tattoos as you can get. Now let's talk about the jewels. For the watch clusters, I'm using attack while holding a shield with Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess and Fuel the Fight. The second one is Cold Cluster with Blast Freeze for Freeze Proliferation, Prismatic Heart and Widespread Destruction. For the mediums, I'm using one with Spike Concoction and Fasting. The other 3 are Crit Clusters with Basics of Pain and Pressure Points. One small cluster with Enduring Composure for Endurance Charge Sustain. Watcher's Eye with Precision Flask Charge Gain on Crit and Haste Phasing. This one is very cheap and it shouldn't be a big problem to get it. Now, very important, Elegant Hubris with Caspiro for ignoring the attribute requirements and some good passives for DPS. You can get pretty much anything here for the damage, but make sure that you have one passive for power charge generation, as without power charges we are not crit capped. And for the rest of the jewels, rare jewels with max life and double crit multi. I bought all of them for 50c, but if double crit is expensive, just get single one with some other damage mod or something. Now let's move forward to the gear and how to craft it. But to be fair, you should be able to just buy most of the items from the market as they're nothing really special. For the shield, I'm using a rare shield with suppress, double res and as much life as you can get. You don't really need tier 1 suppress here depending on the rest of your build, so it shouldn't be that expensive. The helmet is basically the same. Resistance, suppress and as much life as you can get on dexterity base. For the pieces, get mana cost and mana reservation. Depending on your budget, you can roll it with lesser currency. The body armor is doppelganger with high less damage taking roll and corruption for levels of the gem if you can get it for cheap. Gloves is the first place of the gear that you can craft here. If you're curious how to craft them deterministically and how to get this fracture mode on any gloves that you want, feel free to ask me on Twitch. If you're lazy, you can just get rest here instead and buy them from the market. Resistance and as much as you life that you can get on dexterity base. For the implicits, get rage on hit with some accuracy or suppression if you need it. Amulet is replica Dragon's Fan for huge +3 levels and some reservation. For the Annoyed, you can take Divine Judgment or maybe some reservation if you need, or maybe even Whispers of Doom and use Temporal Chains for the memes. The rings are the only place where you need to spend some money. If you want to make them really cheap, just buy from the market rings with resistance, accuracy, high life and open prefix for mana cost craft. If you want to spend some money here, you can craft the same rings as I have. Buy the base from the market with tier 1 resistance and tier 1 accuracy. Ideally the item should have only 4 mods. Then use Fractured Orb for 50-50 to fracture the suffix. After you fracture it, just spam Essences of Hatred until you hit tier 1 resistance or accuracy. Then lock suffix and reforge life until you get high enough life. If you feel the prefix, either annul or go back to Essence spam. Finish the item with mana cost. The second ring is just Commander's Touch as it's much cheaper than getting the second crafting ring. The belt is Tides of Time with 3 utility charges and at least 2 life flask charges. Don't forget to catalyst it. For the flasks, I'm using high quality Divine Flask. You can craft it yourself with alteration spamming until you hit tier 1 prefixes and open suffix, and get CB immunity from the Beast craft. Then Quicksilver Flask with increased effect and movement speed. If you want more damage, you can use Bottle Fade here instead, or maybe even Progenesis for more survivability, or Silver for both damage and speed. I prefer faster characters, so I'm using Quicksilver here, but you can always swap Flask for bossing, so... And the rest are triple rest flask with tier 1 charge recovery prefix and maximum charge recovery implicit. Suffixes doesn't really matter as we are not using the flasks. Honestly, I think that you might be able to barely sustain them without this enchant and actually use flasks, but that's up to you to test as I was using it this way without any problems. Now, last but not least, let's move forward to the gems. For the main auras in the helmet, I'm using Petrified Blood, Flesh and Stone, Haste and Skitterballs for some additional damage. Then in the body armor, main damaging links with Explosive Concoction of Destruction, link with Empower, Inspiration, Elemental damage with attacks, and Greater Volley. For the 7th link, I'm using increased critical strikes, but it might be hard to get it, since there aren't that many of them on the market. So you can either try to get it yourself or just use something else. But don't use Elemental Focus, as you will lose your freeze. Then in the boots, Summon Flame Golem. Honestly, it's not really that useful as the golem dies all the time, so you can use something like Flame Dash here instead. Then Precision link with Arrogance and Blood Rage for frenzy charges. In the shield, Shield charge link with faster attacks and Fortify for mobility and occasional defenses. And in the gloves, custom damage taking Mortal Coil setup, not linked with Sniper's Mark and Mark on Hit. Okay, this is it when it comes to the build. Overall, I'm really satisfied with this build. Yes, it lacks clear speed a bit, but this build is really nice for everything else. Essences, T17 Boss Rush, Invitation Farming, Destructive Blade, Harvest, Alva, Jun, Beasts, and so on. For this price, it's definitely a strong build that deserves some attention. But for now, I'm not going to be playing this build anymore, as I have another really strong build incoming. Finally, it's going to be another Auto Bomber, as it's been several videos since the last one. And we all love Auto Bombers here, right? If you want to try this build, as usual, I'm selling them, so you can message me in the game or Discord server if you're interested. Well, this is it guys. If you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to see me play live or just have a chat, feel free to follow me on Twitch and join my Discord server. If you want to support me financially, there are links in the description below. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!